Hello everyone, welcome to Indomitable Tech. I am your AML consultant Shaunak, and in this particular video we'll be focusing on object oriented programming. So why do object oriented programming? So object oriented programming is code based upon creating an object and then designing the methods and attributes around that particular object. So you first write a class, and that single class can be used for generating several objects, and each object can be customized to its own requirement. So instead of writing the same code for all these different types of cases, you can write only one class, and this class can be then tweaked to match that particular use case. So that's where object oriented programming comes in handy. Also, it increases the modularity of the code. Like I said, you just have to write the code one time, and that code can be reused several number of times by creating different objects. And usage, I have mentioned few usages here, but these are just few. There are many usages. A simple Google search will give you where all object oriented programming is used. So number one, when you are dealing with variety of functions relating to each other. So let's say there are 10 different functions relating to the same thing, and if you want to group all these 10 functions in one thing, so you can do that using object oriented programming. Then when you want to execute a series of same functions but on different objects, so like I said, let's say for example, if you want to get the information about, let's say, 4 wild animals, let's say elephant, lion, tiger and zebra. So these are 4 different cases where you want to know how many limbs they have, whether they have sharp teeth, whether they are herbivorous or omnivorous, etc., whether they have tail or not. So you write 4 different functions which tells you the information about these animals. So instead of creating 4 different functions for all these 4 different animals, you can just create one class which has 4 different functions inside it, which gives the information of these 4 things which we just discussed, like whether the animal is herbivorous or carnivorous, or whether how many limbs they have, whether it has sharp teeth or not, etc. So this single class will be sufficient to give the information about these 4 animals, instead of creating this repeating the same thing for 4 different times. Then finally, in actual applications, so object oriented programming comes in handy when you are working with AIML, then API creation, and there are many other implementations of it. In AIML, if you are working with classification models in deep learning, then in generative adversarial networks, when you are working with generators and discriminators, you write that in class format. And then in API creation, if you are working with Flask RESTful or Django REST, and also with the fast API, so there are both types of methods over there. Methods as in ways of designing the API. So it can be class based as well as function based. For better performance, we use class based API creation. So you define a class, and inside that you define the methods. For example, get method, post method, put method, delete method. So in API creation as well, there are other applications which you can get by doing a simple Google search. So let's begin with the actual coding. So the first thing, without constructing object, what we'll do, we'll create a simple class. For example purpose, we'll be developing a simple mathematics class which has the methods of addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. As we go on, if necessary, we'll add more methods to it. So in this first one, without object, we will define addition and subtraction. So def. So how to construct a class? So I'll first remove this. To construct a class, write simple class. The convention is to write the name in camel case. So camel case starts with the first letter of that particular name being capital, and then the other one being small, and if another word succeeds that first word, then that word's first letter should also be capital. So let's say simple class. So this can be the name of our class that we are writing, simple class, and here we will be writing def, our first method. It is a simple function that you write, but with indent, since it is inside this particular class. So def add, and here since it is a simple class, I'll be passing the parameters, let's say a and b. So a and b will be numbers, and this will return a plus b since it is simple addition. And similarly, if I want to write subtraction, subtract a and b, and this will return a minus b. And if I want to do multiplication, I'll define that method as well, multiply ab, return a into b. Done. So this class got created. Now if I want to execute, so I can assign this class to a variable, let's say maths maths simple equal to this simple class. And then if I want to carry on these methods, I can do that. So maths underscore simple and dot add. This is how you make the call to the method, by writing dot and then call that particular method, and inside the parenthesis you pass a and b, that is the parameters, a equal to let's say 2 and b equal to 4. And if I execute it, print, let's put this inside print so we get to see. So if I execute it, it is 2 plus 4 equal to 6. Similarly, we can do the same thing, maths simple dot subtract, let's say a equal to 5 and b equal to 3. It should give 2, it is giving 2. And let's do the finally multiplication, a equal to 1 and b equal to 2. So this should also give 2 because 1 multiplied by 2 is 2. So this was a simple class that we are calling from this particular variable where we have saved the class, and we are calling the methods that we have defined over here. But we had to repeat the same thing over and over. By repeat, I mean we have to give the parameters and then call in that particular parameter. So while defining the class, that is okay, but while actually using that particular class, we had to always define the same parameters over and over, that is a and b over and over. Now moving on, we will now see how to tackle it by constructing an object. So while constructing the object, the first method remains the same, that is class followed by the name of the class in camel case format. And here we will define initiator def underscore underscore init followed by underscore underscore, and here you pass in self. So it makes call to itself when the class is created, and it executes this particular def underscore underscore init. So that is initiator, it calls the initiator, self, and here we will pass in a and b. The same thing which we did several times, we just have to call in here one time when we are creating the object. And here we will define self dot a equal to this a. So here self dot a is the attribute, and self dot b equal to b. So in earlier case we did not have any attribute assigned here, but here while using the while we are constructing the object, we are able to define the attribute and we'll be saving this attribute. So I'll show you how to call the attribute and functions. So till now we have only seen in this case how we are calling the methods, but in this case we will see how to call the attribute as well. It is very easy, you just have to write dot followed by the name of that attribute. And since this is defined, now let us again define the addition, subtraction and multiplication methods. So def add, here you don't have to define a and b, just type in self and then return. Here you have to mention self dot a plus self dot b. Do not give a and b because you are already defining it over here. So self dot a and self dot b. and if you give a and b, then a and b needs to be defined here again, otherwise it will throw an error. So since here you are using self, here you have to pass self dot a and self dot b, then def subtract self return self dot a minus self dot b, and then multiply def multiply self return self dot a multiplied by self dot b. That's it. And now we just create an object, simple object equal to this without object, the name of the class, and here we have to pass in the value of a and b. So for this particular example, let us give a as 5 and b as 3. That's it. Now the object is created. Now if I want to call the attributes, I will call the write the object and just write dot followed by the name of the attribute. So simple object dot a will give the value of that attribute. Similarly, if I do dot b, it will give value of b. And then if I want to call the methods, I'll say add. That's it. So it will on its own take the attributes and calculate addition. So if I execute it, it will give 8 because 5 plus 3 equal to 8. Similarly, if I do subtract followed by parenthesis and then execute, it will give the difference 5 minus 3, and then multiply 15. So 5 multiplied by 3, it is giving 15. So that's when it is coming in handy. We don't have to define a and b all the time, and we can also call the attribute and methods from the object. So that's where object oriented programming comes handy. So this is a very simple example that I am giving. So for those who it is for those for whom it is new, it will be easier for them to understand. But as you start working more in Python, so the more you code and the more applications you build, so it will be more easier for you to understand more complex terms when you are dealing with class. So one more thing, if you want to print class, so right now if I print class, so the print object, if I print the object, I am not getting anything. So I am just getting the main dot without object. So if I want to know what it is, you can do that. So just write def underscore underscore str underscore underscore self, and then return. Here you can pass the string that you want to appear. So you can say a simple object oriented class. That's all. And I'm again creating the object, and now if I print, I'm getting this a simple object oriented class. So underscore underscore str underscore underscore self, so that will give the text that you are defining it over here when you are printing that particular class. Similarly, you can return only the input parameters. So I'll return it in f string, a equal to a and b equal to b. Okay, so that I have defined over here. And if I create the class again and then print that particular class, so it should be self dot a and self dot b, my bad, self dot a self dot b. Now it should give a equal to 5 and b equal to 3. Similarly, if I create one more object, second object, I'll give it the name second object and write the class and input the parameters as 10 and 1. And now if I print this second object, it is giving a equal to 10 and b equal to 1, what we defined. So that's where underscore underscore str comes handy. And similarly for this second object, I can see the attributes and also call methods. So second object dot a is giving me 10, second object dot b is giving me 1. Also I can do addition, subtraction as well. So if I want to subtract, I can do that. 9, so 10 minus 1, 9. So this is how you do object oriented programming in the most simplest example. And then lastly, class inheritance. So if I want to make modifications to this particular class, and if I want to add my own methods and attributes to this particular class, or if I want to make any changes to the existing class, I can use class inheritance. So in this particular example, so what we will do, we will inherit this particular class with object, and we will add one more method to it, division. So let's do that. So class child class. So child class is the name of the child class that we will be building using class inheritance, and we will inherit this with object class. So for inheritance, so you have to write the name of the class like any other class that we defined here. So class followed by the name of the class, but then you have to pass in the name of the inherited class inside a parenthesis. So class, name of the class, and inside the parenthesis we are passing with object, which is the name of the class here. So now that is done. So it has inherited the class, and here again let us build a constructor def. So we are building an initiator over here. So init is the initiator, and self a b. You can directly write super over here, so it will just inherit what we have over here, a and b. So you can do that as well, super. If time permits, I will do that and show you. So def divide self and return self dot a divided by self dot b. That's it. So this is the inherited class, but it will also have methods of addition, subtraction and multiplication. So let's create object inherited, let's say child object equal to child class, and here we will pass in a and b. A equal to, let's say 7 and b equal to 3. And now if you want to see child object dot a, it is giving 7, the attributes, dot b equal to 3, and then child object, the same method that we have not defined over here, but it is inheriting from with object. So child object dot add, it will add 7 and 3. Similarly subtract, it will subtract 3 from 7. And similarly we have defined divide over here, so let's use that divide. It will divide 7 by 3, it is giving 2.3333. So this was the parent class, and then we added this particular method to it. So now the child class can use the methods of the parent class as well as the method that we have defined new over here. So that's how class inheritance comes in handy. So if there is any existing class, then you can just inherit that class and tweak that class to your requirement, and you can add to that class so it matches the use case that you are dealing with. So that's all about object oriented programming. So if you are working with data science, then object oriented programming might not be that frequently used, but if you are working with machine learning, then object oriented programming will be it will be used quite often. And also if you are learning Python just to work with Excel sheets, then uh, class and object oriented programming will not be that frequently required, but if you want to keep the code modular, that let's say if you are working for any particular process, data cleaning process, so you can write it in one single class, and the methods can be the related methods to that particular use case. So that's where you can use object oriented programming. But object oriented programming, apart from that, it is not that widely required if you are going to use simple Python to automate your day to day tasks, if you are working in non technical field like HR or finance or admin. So but it is a skill good to have, and if you are working with if you are planning on working as a developer, then object oriented programming is definitely required, and you should practice more on that and develop. There are other concepts as well in object oriented programming. I have just touched the surface level ones, which are the basic ones, but very required. So if you are a programmer, definitely learn other concepts about it, like static methods, and there are other methods as well. So that's all for this particular video. I am thankful that you joined me in this particular video, and if you have completed all the videos before this, and if you have completed this video, then I think you are in good shape to start your data science or data analysis journey using Python. So anything which you are currently doing using Microsoft Excel, you should be able to do that using Python. The next lectures I'll be discussing on some use cases where we will be reading data from Excel files or CSV files and then processing that data to get the required output. So once you write that one particular script, the next time you don't have to redo all the processes. You just have to execute the script with the new files, and the output will get generated automatically. So in the past, when I used to work with Excel, so every month I had to do a certain process which used to take around 4 to 5 days. So instead of that, what I did was I wrote a Python script dealing with that, and so the entire thing just took less than 10 seconds. So we look up, then aggregating the values, then aggregating the text. So all that was automated, and once the script got executed in less than 10 seconds, I got the processed file ready. So that is the power of Python and automation, and I would suggest you to get good at Python, so your task and life will also get easier. That's all for this particular video. This was Shaunak signing off. Thank you.